This podcast is sponsored by Graphic 9. Established in 2011, Graphic 9 is a creative agency and production company, a one-stop shop for printing, marketing, and advertising. They help turn your creative ideas from prototype to product. Think like business signages, packaging design, product prototypes, and even a marketing campaign if you need it. The Graphic 9 creative space is located right across USCTC. You can get affordable and high-quality prints, signs, giveaways, collaterals, really anything you need print-wise. Graphic 9 collaborates with creatives and agencies to create. So Cebu, they want to collaborate. Follow their FB and Instagram at Graphic9. That's GRAFIKNINE. Graphic 9. This podcast is also sponsored by Room 11. They bring your songs to life. Even before Room 11 became a sponsor, we've talked about them many times with many of our music guests. In fact, one of my favorite 032 Conversations episodes was recorded in Room 11. That's the one I did with my band Rescue a Hero. We sat inside their amazing recording area, and we just recorded an episode there. They are the recording studio that many musicians in Cebu have used. Vincent Echo, for example, I believe recorded his whole album in Room 11. So if you're interested in bringing your songs to life, email listen@room11.studio. That's Room 11, ROMM, and the number 11. So listen@room11.studio or message them at Room 11 Studio on Facebook to inquire. All right, let's get on with the show. Welcome to 032 Conversations, the podcast where we talk to creatives, see how they live, and how they do their work. I'm your host, Carlo Villarica. I am finally back from vacation. It's officially 2 days. I've officially been in Cebu for 2 days. Woohoo! And I'm honestly glad to be back. Get back to work, get a good sense of routine. That's the thing when we were out on vacation. Every day was pretty different. And at some point, I was just looking forward to getting back home. Steph, my wife, she likes to travel a lot more than I do. If you leave me to my own devices, I'd probably just stay here, stay in Cebu, stay at home for most of the time and not really go out and see the world. So I appreciate that she likes to travel, and in a way it kind of forces me to get out there. Because, it's cool to go out with your wife and travel and stuff. So I appreciate it, but I'm always excited to be back home. One thing we did in the US while we were there was check out the Pride Parade in San Francisco. We even took a walk around the Castro district. I think that's like their LGBTQIA LGBT area, and it was fun. It was really fun. If you don't know what a Pride Parade is, I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what it was either until we were there. So a Pride Parade, I'm just gonna read Wikipedia. Okay, here it goes. So Pride Parades. So they're also known as Pride Marches, Pride Events, or Pride Festivals. They're outdoor events celebrating lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, LGBTQ, social and self-acceptance, achievements, their legal rights, and pride. So the event also at times serves as demonstrations for legal rights such as same-sex marriage. So most Pride events occur annually, and many take place around June. So that's what we did. There was a Pride Parade in San Francisco. We were walking around San Francisco when that happened, and it was really fun. It was like a mini Sinulog in a way, because people were really festive, and let me tell you, people got into it. They dressed up in these wonderful that rainbow flag. Yeah, that rainbow flag. You see it all over. And then people put in their t-shirts and everything. And a good number of people were not wearing t-shirts. or clothes. Yep, I've never seen that many boobs or penises in my whole life. Steph's family, they suggested, okay, there's a pride parade, so it's probably not a good idea to bring a car there. So we went to a train station, like the BART, they call it the BART in San Francisco, like right before heading to San Francisco. We parked the car there, went up to the train station, and of course there was this long line of people, and they were clearly ready to celebrate. They were clearly going to Pride Parades. You could see how they all dressed up. They were in full festive gear. Like people were, you could tell. Like the rainbow flag colors were up, and people were just festive. And that's when I first saw the first lady without a t-shirt on in the train station. So even just the beginning part of that, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what it is. And then I was wondering why. I was wondering for the longest time, like, why are people getting naked? And it's really like a pride thing. It's really, I guess, pride for their bodies, stuff like that. And and then the guys were going at it too. Yep. No, I don't know. I mean, we're walking in the crowd, and I was taking pictures to my camera while slowly inching forward. Think about like in Sinulog where there's people are shoulder to shoulder, and I was taking pictures. And when I was taking pictures and I looked at my camera, so I was looking down at my camera, and when I moved my camera away, there it was, some naked guy walking past me. Man, I think I am so Filipino. Like, I am so conservative when it comes to those things. So I was like, whoa. Yeah, it was an experience. It was a cool experience. It was definitely fun. It was something, if we happen to be there in another Pride Parade, it's something I do again. It was fun just to be there. So, talking about like my conservatism, like, people in the U.S., it really, while we were there, the people in the U.S., it really felt like the people there were so progressive. Like, my wife commented that after we were walking around in the Pride Parade, she realized how behind, in a sense, the PH was in terms of acceptance and embracing the LGBTQIA community, the LGBT community. So, I mean, I recorded this interview way before that Pride Parade. So, and then knowing that this community is really in Cebu, it's an important community. It's a big community. It's people that contribute heavily to the community. So I wanted to get a little insight into it. And so I reached out to Jude Bacalso. And many people in the creative industry in Cebu know Jude Bacalso. She hosted, a lot of people know her as a host. She, in fact, hosted our wedding. She's one of Cebu's most accomplished writers and one of the best storytellers Cebu has to offer. She does many things, and even, as you'll know, it is in the first part of the interview, she has like some sort of science job. I'm not the best person to explain what she does, but she'll talk about it. So we talked to Jude Bacalso, talked about what she does, but also at some point in the interview, we talk about what it is like to be in the LGBT community. We talked about the terms that you can use, he, she, or they, how people identify as. I don't know what else to say. It was a good interview. I learned a lot, especially about that community. But before we get to it, if this is your first time to listen to 032 Conversations, subscribe. We have a new episode every Tuesday, and you can find the podcast anywhere you can find podcasts. Let's get into it. Here's the conversation with Jude Bacalso.
Yeah, I'm not much into rice or pasta, so it works for me. I like the meat. I like it salty. I like it.
So you don't eat rice, Jude? No, but like, you're super strict. You're not supposed to eat.
Yes,
like,
but I cheat all the time.
Okay, so you're like
just like in relationships, char. I'm just kidding. I also eat sugar, so but bye. What man?
I eat. Okay, so you like
I'm a
Like
cheater.
a low carb-ish na lang good.
Low carb, yes, because carbs really bloat me up.
Mm.
So it's carbs that really bloat me up. Plus, I've been endorsing them for a while, so it's a free meal basically. Diet in a box. I've been having them for 3 years. They've been feeding me for 3 years.
Oh, that's super convenient.
Yes. So it's like I look at it as a free meal. So whenever they have a new diet, like they started keto and then they had me on it, I haven't been off it because I actually like the keto diet. I like it salty, it's fat, it has pork, it has meat.
I think the problem with the keto is the preparing, because if you're doing the diet in a box, the nice thing with it is they handle all of the preparation.
I mean, I don't have to think about, because if you do a diet like that, you have to buy, like, for example, this kind of meat. So you'll be stuck with beef, whatever for the entire week until it's gone, and then you buy chicken. But with them, in one whole day, you can have chicken, beef, or pork. So you have those options. I mean, if you're doing it yourself, then you have to finish off your stock until you buy a new one.
Yeah, if you're lazy, son, you're just eating the meat and then nothing else.
Yes,
no.
Yes. So this one has the greens. It has, it's very convenient. Plus, if you compute it, if you're being practical about it, I don't remember anymore how much the prices are because they've changed through the years. But when I started with them, it was 1,200. So it came out like, because it's 3 meals a day for 5 days, it came out at 120 a meal, which isn't bad. I mean, that's not bad.
Oh, not bad. Good. Yes, delivered to your house.
Delivered to your house, yes. Done by a nutritionist. And the advantage is a chef is on board. So he has like theme weeks, theme days.
So in short, it also tastes good.
It tastes good. It really tastes good. I wouldn't be on it like if it didn't taste good. But I slide off the the diet wagon once in a while.
Oh, yeah, because you also get invited to all of
the
these
events.
things.
Yes, and I don't say no, I'm on a diet. Never. I never do that when I'm invited to like an event. No.
Well, one last thing for levels also. Can you state your name and what you do?
My name is Jude Bacalso, and my God, what I do, I'm a storyteller. That's what I like to describe myself as because I do so many things. Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of where I wanted to start. I like to prepare a little bit for the interviews. And yeah, I wasn't sure
if it was the same person you were Googling.
No, grabe naman.
No, because I get that all the time. Like, are you the same guy who does the environmental clearances and all that? So I'm doing a project now that's more environment, my nerdy side. So they're like, oh, so you're the same Jude. It surprises them, especially the younger ones in Environmental Management Bureau and DNR.
So I don't know about this. What environmental clearances?
So I do ECCs. I'm an environmental consultant. I've been doing it longer than magazines or anything that people might know me from.
Really?
So yes, I graduated with a degree in genetics. So after that, I trained as an environmental consultant for many years. I was based in Manila for many years, and then my father decided for me to come back home when there was a lot of trouble during that time. Oh, I don't want to mention which year. that's gonna date me. But I came back after many years, and I still do it. I still do the environment thing.
Wait, I don't get it. Wait, what do you need an environmental clearance for?
The law states that any construction above, I think, 4 or 5 stories has an impact on the environment. So you need to apply for environmental clearances for that, for mitigative measures on, let's say, for example, you build in environmentally critical areas like near the shore. Basically, it's a law that tries to keep the environment safe for all of us. Any building above 5 stories, they consider that an environmental risk, or there's an impact because of the number of people that live in it that might generate this amount of waste. So environmental consultants like me, do the study for the companies as a third party for them to be accredited or to be given an environmental compliance certificate by the DENR.
Ah, okay.
So they hire us.
You don't give the clearance. You give the study.
It's the DENR. Yeah. So we do the study on behalf of them, although they do have some already have their in-house consultants that do it for them. But like, for example, I can't mention which one, but the one that I'm working on now, they tried doing it themselves. They got rejected 2 times. So they actually, the owner remembered that I do it. I know him from a different life, one of my different lives. I know him from my party life. Then he remembered that we were talking about it and I actually do it. And so he says, can you do this for us? So because we've been rejected 3 times. So now I'm helping them out with that as well. Yeah.
So that gets me, like, I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, when people, I don't like to talk about it much because somehow it diminishes the science side of me when they know that I'm also the one who does the hosting or the one that does, going out in makeup and all that. It somehow diminishes that. So there are a lot of clients that I do environmental clearances for that they never meet me. I'm on a list in the DNR list, so accredited preparers, that's what they call us. So they just look at, and luckily I'm Bacalso, so I'm up there on the list. Oh. So they go down the list alphabetically, and they call. And some of these numbers, I've never changed numbers. My number has been the same for, I think, 2 decades already or more. So I haven't changed numbers. I'm still on the list. So they go down the list, and the ones up there, like A, they don't respond or are busy, but I'm always responding, so I get these projects.
So when they get to B.
Yes. Like B, and then A pa, diba? So Bacalso. And then C pa.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm really up there. And I respond, I'm like, can we, and so it's mostly just email. Email me or the facts, the requirements, and then I do it because everything now is online in the DNR. Yeah. Everything's online. So I submit it, I get paid, and they never get to meet me. So that's like a side thing that I have going on.
Well, because I was curious.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know this.
No idea.
No idea. Yeah, that's what I do. I've been doing it for longer than anything that you might know me from.
Really?
Yes, longer. That's what I studied in school for.
So, I know you from like a writer, editor, as a host, and many other things.
That came out so much later. Much later, yes.
Well, so I want to get to how that happened because it occurred to me that you, in a way, you have a real, sort of like a real brand, like a real personal brand.
Yes,
like people do know you for
I don't.
certain
Okay,
things.
so that makes me a little self-conscious because people say, "Oh, you got to take care of the brand because you're already a brand," and then it bothers me when I'm introduced as the famous Jude Bacalso. I'm like, no, because he probably doesn't know who I am. So it's other people who do that, which is, I think, good because I never claim to be that, or it's not part of my personal branding, but I love it because I get, like, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's even, she's like legit famous. And she goes, I comment something on Twitter and I get a lot of trouble out of it. And I tell her which is why I love my quasi-fame. I call it quasi-fame. I get all of the perks of it. I don't line up at the banks because sometimes they recognize me from television and then I come over and I go straight to the manager because I hosted their company party. So I get all the perks, but none of the backlash and none of the negativity.
Never?
So, Sometimes I do, but then not as much as when you're like full blown really famous.
Yeah.
Not quasi famous. I like quasi famous.
I like it in a way, like in this day and age. If you do it right, you can be kind of well known amongst a small circle of people.
A small circle that matters.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And because when I try to think of somebody who has like a real personal brand. There are some people who especially these days where they have these so-called influencers, but really they're just a pretty face.
Yes.
And they can take a
Which
nice
is not
picture.
to say I'm not a pretty face.
Of course.
Too bad there's no video. Shut up.
But you're a lot more than that, but that's what I'm trying to say. There's you actually do something. No? And then so that's why to me, there's a lot more weight on it.
More gravitas. Yes, because a lot of them do lack the gravitas. They start out, it's like, okay, my analogy would be, let's say Pink, because you're a musician. Pink started out with, my goodness, get the party started. Or Lady Gaga started out with all these pop, non-consequential songs. And then suddenly, they've always had gravitas, but they use that to get attention. And then their real talent comes out. And that's what makes them stay in the business for so long, right? So, like in my case, I like it when people judge me. Like, oh, you're just a dumb blonde, which is why I'm blonde. So I like playing the dumb blonde. And then surprising them with that stuff that they didn't know. That adds gravitas to me and to what I do.
Give me an example of that. Like how do you? Because I'm kind of curious. How do you cultivate that trust with people? Because brand is all about these people trust you to do certain things.
Yes, or trust me to be. For example, if you're talking about the world of influencers, I suddenly find myself bunched with them because Cebu Daily News, who I wrote for a very long time, folded up. So they only have a digital version now. So I always used to be invited as columnist for the newspaper. So that's why I was in the events. And then suddenly when that was gone, I still get invited, but now as an influencer. Because people trust that things that I like really are up to a certain standard. Because I don't lie about it or I don't compromise about it. But I'm beginning to see how that world is working, and I'm still feeling it out. Like, because people can pay you to come to their event, or they do pay you to cover an event, which is basically the same as covering it for the newspaper or for print. But in this case, because there are those who do not have the old school background that I have or the training in journalism, they could be swayed to say this and that and not take responsibility for it. They don't take responsibility for what they say or what they put out. They're just enjoying the fact that they're invited.
They're there.
Yes, they're there.
That's something
it's new for them.
That's something that I remember struggling with in the early days of 032
Yes.
because I don't know, we just started it. We had no idea what we were doing, but yeah.
Which is why your tagline is we write about what we like, or
like we share what we like, something like that.
Yes.
Then for a while it was like we're getting invited to these things, and then at some point you get invited to enough stuff. Number one, it takes up a lot of time.
Yes.
And then number two, you get invited to things that aren't always
interesting to you.
Yeah, like like, oh my god, what am I gonna say about this event? And then you realize, we can't just fake it, diba? Like I guess some people can, but I mean, do you ever struggle with something like that?
Yes, even with the newspaper, not just with the digital world. Like in the newspaper when I was starting out, of course you get thrown, when you're young in the industry, you get thrown into stories you have no control over. You can't choose, right? You can't say, I don't want to go to that story because it's not interesting or it's not consequential or it doesn't line up with my personal values. No. You go and you cover these stories. And you actually, I developed a style where people... This reminds me of one comment I got from like a veteran journalist also. We went to this food tasting and it was horrible. It was a horrible food tasting. I'm not going to mention because I love the people who were behind it. So it was horrible. And so this other journalist from another newspaper actually looked for he refused to write about it. After it, so he refused to write about it, and he went looking for all of the articles of the people who went to the event with him. Okay. So he checked them out. It's like calling them out, liar, liar, because whenever we saw each other at another event, she'd be like, "You were lying about it because it was no good." And then he came up to me and says, "Okay, I wrote about my personal relationship with the person who were behind it because I really knew them. I did not say that the food was delicious. I did not say that it was a wonderful selection of food. I didn't praise it. I just mentioned that it was them. And then I guess you would say redirection.
You spun it.
Yes, I spun it. I spun it in a way that, so I like to put in a personal touch too, because it's a very personal column. When you're given a column, you can actually put in a personal spin to it. So that's what I did. So he's like, okay, so you're not a liar. I flirted around the idea, but I never said it was good. And he was like, okay, you got my respect for that. I was like, okay. And this guy is very opinionated. So the fact that went well with him, it kind of made me happy that I did not have to compromise on anything when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, that's one thing, like writing for a newspaper, because you can kind of hide behind the brand of a newspaper.
Yes,
but when you are doing it as yourself.
You have to be a little bit more careful. That's right. Because people rarely look at the byline. When I was writing, for a long time, I was editor, but no one knew. But I like that silent power. I actually prefer it. That I was orchestrating everything that you were reading on that day. When I was with Sunstar, I was in charge of the most number of pages, more than any other editor, every single day. And there are only 5 days in a year that doesn't have a newspaper. So every single day, I was orchestrating what you're reading. I love that silent power. I would never introduce myself as the editor of this and that and come and eat at your restaurant. That was that was never done because I was very old school. I was schooled by really old school editors who never did that, who rarely went out to the office and sent out their writers. So I had that training. I'm very grateful for that. Pura Quintanar, who are all, they've all passed away already, but yeah, Chiking Shares. I mean, they had this palpable power, but they never abused it. Not that I could see. So I had that great respect for that kind of power, that kind of silent power. I prefer that over now that I have to put my face on it. Because I'm slowly transitioning to that, and the brands that I work with now require me to put my face, my voice, my, when I do the videos and all that. So yes, as someone who was a byline for many years and enjoyed all these perks, it takes a little getting used to.
Would you say that, because honestly, it's a bit surprising for me to hear.
For me? Saying this?
Yeah, because you seem, from my perspective,
enjoying it?
No, but like I have a lot of my interactions with you are generally like you are a host of something.
Yes. So I'm always on the spotlight.
Yeah, yes. And you seem obviously very comfortable with it. No? So were you so you're saying that you're comfortable being
a byline
behind the scenes, a byline.
Yes.
But then obviously somewhere along the way
I got pushed into the limelight.
Yeah.
Yes, I've always been pushed into the limelight. So like even so when you talk about quasi fame, I've always been popular in whatever situation I've always been, even from elementary school, from high school. I've always been like out there because people would always assume that I love the spotlight, so I would play to it. I'm exactly like my father and my brothers, who are in their private lives very quiet, but if you shine the spotlight on them individually, musalida, that would be the word, musalida. They would really act like it was their spotlight. So I'm the same, but I genuinely prefer being behind the scenes. It's just not, I know I do a good job and I'm hosting, so I enjoy it. And, I take it seriously when people say, oh, you're the only one who can do this. You're the only one who can face this crowd. And so I take that really seriously. So it's like, I have to deliver for you because you trust me so much to do this.
How did you get started hosting?
people just assume just because I could speak English that I would be good in front of a crowd, which is it's not always true, right? It's not always true. You could speak good English, but then freeze in front of a crowd and just, it started with, since high school, theater. I had a very strong theater background, from high school, even from elementary, high school, and then all the way to university. Even if I majored in the sciences, my teachers remember me turning the dark reaction of photosynthesis into a play to better explain it to people. So yeah, but I think theater had a very big influence on me, to train me to be in front of a crowd. And then writing was also, that's like a secret weapon, because in my case, when I'm hosting, I'm writing my reaction. I listen to what the person before me is saying, and then I react to them by writing very quickly in my mind how I'm going to respond to that. So when it comes out very, people think that it's spontaneous, but really it isn't. Even the comedians that you watch on TV, different kinds of humor, Vice Ganda and all those in the comedy bars, that's not spontaneous. It's something that they've spun around in their heads for a very long time, because these are reactions from everyday lives with people that they talk to. But it just sounds spontaneous because it's the first time you've heard it.
I noticed that when you host gigs, like something will happen, and you always incorporate
whatever I heard or whatever they said, right?
Yeah.
Which I think makes a good host generally.
Yeah.
I mean, not just me, but you have to.
It gives a sense of spontaneity.
Yes.
But,
plus that you're there, that you're actually there, and you were listening to them, right? So yeah.
So you're not lost in your head.
Yes. You're not just reading from a script. You're actually interacting with the person you're speaking with.
You still do a lot of writing.
Yes, for magazines now.
Who do you write for?
I write for Ink Publishing. So Ink Publishing is this international company that handles in-flight magazines across the globe. So Delta Magazine, Delta Air, Silk Winds, and in the Philippines recently they got both Mabuhay, which is Philippine Airlines, and Smile Magazine, which is Cebu Pacific Air's in-flight magazine. I actually started with Philippine Airlines in-flight magazine, Mabuhay magazine. I got my break there with travel writing. And then during the time it wasn't in the same company as Smile. Now they're handled by the same company. So I cannot write for Mabuhay anymore. I used to be able to write for both when they were under separate companies. Now that they're under the same company, Smile, who was with the company first, asked that they not share creatives, so I'm not allowed to write for anything else but Smile.
Okay.
Oh, well, at least not Mabuhay, which is a direct competitor, because they're both Philippine.
Yeah.
Filipino airline companies. Yeah.
So, how did you get there? Like, because, a lot of people write, but not many.
Given those breaks?
Yeah.
Jaja Chongbian actually recommended me to the editor of Mabuhay during that time, June Ventura. She was doing stuff for them, showing them around, and he was looking for a writer, and she recommended me because she knew me from the newspaper, and then
she's already writing in the newspaper.
I was already writing with the news. I was already an editor of the newspaper. I met Jaja during that time. She was just starting off with Big Seed, so I met her and worked with her when she was still in Shangri-La, Shangri-La Mactan. So yes, and I was also with the newspaper. So she recommended me, and I had a good relationship with June Ventura and Mabuhay. It was fun. And then he branched out into his own magazines, but they were short-lived. But he also got me to write for them. Eventually, when Smile Magazine was also doing stories in Cebu, someone also recommended me. I think it was the Radisson, because I was helping them out with their PR during that time. And so they had an activity. They had a feature with Smile Magazine. So I was also recommended to them. And then Tara Sering, who was the editor-in-chief, recently left the magazine after God, Tara has been there for like a decade, and she's won a lot of awards for the magazine. We have a very good relationship. So I was sad to see her go, but I guess she wanted to try something new. So with Smile, they asked permission from June Ventura. Can we ask Jude to write for us? And he said yes. So I began writing for both. But I think the underlying question would be, how did you get these breaks? And I only have one question to anything that I do. Be so good that they can't ignore you. Be so good about whatever it is you do that they can't ignore you. Whether it applies to whether you're a waiter, or whether you're a writer, or whether you're a photographer, or whether you're cleaning the streets.
I think that's a Steve Martin quote.
Yes, I think it was originally Steve Martin. And I'm not too sure if it really was from him, but it's always accredited to him. But yes, be so good they can't ignore you. I don't remember where I first heard that, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, that's exactly what I'm doing. Because people would probably, it's easy to accuse me of spreading myself too thin, because since I do a lot of things simultaneously, but I make sure that whatever it is, I have to be so good that they can't ignore me.
So which segues to what I was thinking about when you were, because not, you also mentioned you're helping with PR.
Mm-hmm.
So many
things.
There's
yes,
so many things,
yeah.
and then it's not like you're half-assing this.
Whatever I'm doing,
whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
How do you keep track, or I don't know how to phrase this
time
question.
management, or
how do you do? I don't know.
All of these.
The bad question would be, how do you do all of these things? No, but. Yeah, how do you do all of these things?
There's a certain, you can plan out your schedule, because I haven't had a regular job in probably 20 years or 25
you used to
years.
Teach or something.
Yes,
I remember Jason.
Yes, my student. Yes, your friend Jason is a student in Veles, which I enjoyed. I really want to retire as a teacher. But there's no money in it. Oh my God, there is no money in it. That's why they sell tocino, and these things, they actually do happen because there's no money in it. But I want to get rich now, be comfortable. I'm not really rich, but I want to get comfortable, have like a nest egg. Is it a nest egg? Yeah, nest egg for me in my old age, and then retire as a teacher, because I'm a very good teacher. I get that from all my former students. I never failed anyone because I knew how it was to be on that side of the equation, and just show me a little effort.
Yeah, did you fail in school
I
before?
did fail in school. I had all of the grades in the UP system, from 1 to 5 to drop to...
That is the... that's the advice I give my niece, and then
try all
the grades.
Try all the grades, because
and then
otherwise, how would you be able to? Their folks are gonna kill you, but how would you be able to identify with other people if you're only at a certain niche, right? If you occupy just a certain niche, then you won't be able to relate to people. Oh, I got a 5. I'm like, oh, honey, I've gotten 5s too. So yeah, I've had drop. I was suspended from school for the anti-hazing. So this is funny. There was an anti-hazing law that was implemented during our time, and I belong to a campus organization called the UPLB Genetic Society. Okay. So very nerdy, right? We were very nerdy. We were founding members of the Philippine Genetic Society. We were considered like one of the top ranked academic organizations in school. But we also had membership, like a ceremony. So there would be hazing in it. Well, it's coming of age and a rite of passage thing when you were younger. So they made physical.
Yeah,
yes. Not really bad. Like fraternity hazing, but to a distilled degree.
Maybe I want to describe it a little bit more, because I don't know if
it's the same with
yeah, I would assume that younger listeners would be like, hazing. So you make fun of them for a week, and then it's
that's considered hazing. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Because you're a neophyte, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're talking about
a little bit physical. There was a paddle.
Yeah,
Yes, there's a paddle. So there was a paddle that has been passed down from generation. I don't remember if we had an actual paddle because I actually belonged to two organizations in school. One was called the Habayaba Clan, which is on the floor that I lived in. I was very lucky because I always belonged to the right organizations without me choosing them. Like, for example, Habayaba Clan was made up of the second floor of Unit 4 of men's dorm in UPLB, which was where my grandfather put me because when he was younger, that's the only dorm that he knew, men's dorm. So he placed me there, and it turned out to be they had a very tight organization on the second floor where I was, and they're very notorious. And they were made up of the leaders, or at least like officers of all the fraternities on campus. So now that I was there, Brad, I didn't have any trouble in school at all because I was friends with all of the fraternities by virtue of the fact that they were my blood in Habayaba clan or the HB clan. So I was very lucky that way.
You weren't given a hard time.
I was never given a hard time. That's why I have no hang-ups. Like, I'm sure you can feel that from me. I don't have hang-ups about, I'm so oppressed or no, I don't have that because I was never given a hard time. Even from elementary. Well, maybe it has, like, a lot of it is luck. But maybe, I don't know, the way you comport yourself also is part of that. You have to constantly try to prove yourself. I do that all the time. Consciously or subconsciously. I have to be superior so you don't judge me on anything else but my work.
Yeah, I know that, at least for me, when I was in high school, I never got into... I was not given a hard time at all, but I think that was because I was bigger than everybody else.
Okay, so you always have an advantage.
Yeah, I was probably quiet and then not really confrontational, but no one really gave me a hard time
because your size.
Yeah. Well, now I'm the same size as everybody else. But back then I was bigger than everybody else. So I attribute it, for me personally, to luck. But
in your case, genetics, because you were given that size. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. And then I interrupted your story.
And then, well, I guess in my case, yours would be size, mine would be smarts. I really had to be the smart one in elementary school, all boys school in Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
Yes. You would imagine that I would be bullied.
Yeah, that's where I went to.
Yes.
And then it was rough for some kids.
Yes, it was.
It really was rough for some kids.
Which I never went through that because I was the smart one and I was very generous. And they will never forget that. All my classmates from my batch always remember, and they always keep saying that we would never have passed school if it wasn't for me because I would share my answers. And it got to a point where, I don't know if you still remember Father Nunez?
Yeah.
Father Nunez was my favorite. Father Nunez loved me. He wanted me to be the next generation of Jesuit priests. Unfortunately, I went another direction from that. But he really wanted me to be one of the next generation of Jesuit priests. And Father Bilbao, do you remember? Father Bilbao? I think he was a guy with the comic books. I was such a nerd. So I would spend most of the time reading his comic books, reading the adventures of Tintin, right?
Yeah. I love that comic.
He had a collection of that in his office, so I would always be there.
Was he like a guidance counselor?
He was a guidance counselor, yes, and he had loads of these comic books in his...
I probably visited...
Yes, he was under the stairs. I remember his office was like under the high school stairs. He was there. So anyway, yeah. So Father Nunez, it came to a point that Father Nunez actually asked me to come to his office and said, and this changed my life, and I will never forget it. He says, it has come to our attention that you let your classmates copy from you, and we don't want to change your generosity, but can you please ask them to at least paraphrase? That's what he said.
Oh my God.
So I'm like,
really, huh?
Yes. Did not tell me what you're doing is wrong. Don't let them copy. I'm getting goosebumps because I'm not sure if it really was him, but I remember someone telling me this. I think it was my mother who would, he told her, please ask Jude to at least ask the classmates to paraphrase, but not to change my generosity.
That shows an awareness, because that's like from a time
For
when,
him, right? Yes.
yeah, like rules were rules.
Yes.
Like I remember, like one of the teachers told my cousin to stop listening to Metallica because it's
the devil's
yeah,
music.
and then it was a strange time.
Yes.
And that shows a level of awareness, and you got that early on.
Yes. So it really changed my life, because from then on, I was never stingy. I still am not stingy with opportunity or like. So quite famously, if you meet one of my, I don't know if Jason told you this or he went through this, but I would let my students cheat. Not really cheat in class, but when they're very restless in an exam, I close the door and then I tell them, you can open your books or your notes or whatever for 5 minutes, but no noise whatsoever. You cannot discuss anything. But if you forgot something, just open your notes, and they will always remember me for that. Because I remember when I was a student, you were very frustrated. I don't remember this formula, or I don't remember this scientific name. If I could get this, then I could get everything right. I remember how frustrating that was. So I would guard the door in case another teacher would pass by, and they would open their books for 5 minutes. They stayed really quiet. They kept to their end of the bargain. And so everyone passed.
Oh, yeah, because that's another frustration that I have, like with school in general, because school is not made for everybody.
Yes, the way it's structured. Not for everybody. Yes.
So there's a certain type of student that benefits from it.
Yes.
And then like Steph, my wife, you know Steph, she is an example of that. Like she got a lot out of school. She did well. And yeah, I am an example.
You'd be the maverick kind.
Yeah, well, like I mean, I tried, but it was very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Like I almost flunked out of college.
The way they've structured it before, that's why I like that they acknowledge now the different intelligences of people. So we were probably intelligent in some aspects, but not in all. And they judged you on the wrong. Yes, they judged you on the wrong ones. Like, you're dumb because you can't pass this exam, but you weren't really dumb. You had a level of intelligence, except that it didn't really conform to how they structured it. So it's changing. It's changing.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. They now acknowledge the different intelligences.
Oh, but the way of teaching is still the same, though. Is it?
I think they're trying to change it. They're like the Montessori
approach,
that's true. Right? I mean, there's already these different...
Montessori approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, different approaches. Sacred Heart girls had a different approach to education, which I found to be more effective. They had modules. So they worked on their own towards a certain goal. If you would finish, and then you could move on to the next level. So the challenge was on yourself.
But I think they changed it. I don't know if it's like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes. I don't know if... But I found like my friends who went to Sacred Heart, girls, had a different approach to education because of that. And I thought it was better.
No, it was, my experience when I went to college in Ateneo, all of the girls from Sacred Heart girls, all of the girls, they did really
they did
well.
brilliantly. Yes, yeah.
Half the guys
from Sacred Heart boys. Yes.
Half of us either failed or almost failed.
Yeah.
So it was difficult.
Yes, I mean it's the same name. I mean it's the same, basically the same school. Yeah, so different schools, but then different approaches. It really, education for me was, I'm lucky that my parents sacrificed to get me the best education. Yeah, I think that mattered as well.
Well, I don't know how to segue into this, but the other thing that I wanted to make sure we talk about, we had that shoot for Ant Hill.
Yes, yeah.
And then there was this really good conversation about
sexuality and identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
where I called you a cis.
Where I
CIS. You learned that you were cisgender. Yes. You're like, what? Cisgender.
Yeah, and then I'll be honest with you, like there's a lot of people who just don't know how to
Relate to? Yes.
how to just approach that whole
Yes,
thing,
yeah.
because even with just the terms, no, like, I'm gonna throw Jake under the bus here a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So Jake, when I told him that you were coming, I was like, oh yeah, nindot na ba, lingaw na siya. Then I was like, then he asked me, so is it, how do you is it do you say he or she?
That's so cute.
And then
Okay.
he was just asking me, so then I gave him my understanding from our short conversation. I mean, better you say it. So, like, correct me if I'm wrong, no, but like,
I prefer to be referred to as a female.
Yes.
Yes, because I identify as a female. But Jake Manggod has known me such a long time. Probably before I transformed into a woman.
Yeah.
He's known me since he was a kid, actually.
Oh, really?
Because I'm friends with his folks. And yes, I'm really good friends with them. So I think he has seen me before I transitioned.
Amo ba?
Yes. So that's why that question. Like, probably I was like Tito level to him during that time because I'm friends with his parents.
Oh.
And then suddenly now I have breasts. And like, oh, okay, so what do I... Yeah. I guess that's why.
No, but
Thank you for throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, sorry, bye. No, but I wonder, I feel like that's, there's a lot of confusion amongst cis.
Yes.
The cisgender, the straight folks. Like, with
Oh, wait, hold on, because I have the same confusion as well. Like I told you in that conversation, my concept of it is still evolving because I would meet also people who I assumed identify the same way I did, but do not. Like I'm not going to mention names because I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. But some people wear makeup, wear the same clothes that I do, wear the same jewelry that I do, but they do identify still as men, but they're cross-dressers. So they dress as the opposite sex. But they don't necessarily identify as a woman.
Oh, so that
I do.
Okay.
I identify myself as a woman now. But I had no problems earlier on before these concepts, which also begs the question, did my idea of myself change because these ideas came out? Or was I always... Because I was fine being called bayot before. Bayot ka, because during that time it's just bayot and tomboy. And now it's now LGBTQIA+++, right? So
I am confused.
Yes. So LGBT would be lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual. And then there's a QIA, which is queer, intersex, and allies, because there's so many. So, like, in a way I'm like, oh, what, like, even for a member of the LGBT community like myself, like, when does that end? Like, when does the + end? Because there's a whole spectrum of it. So, like, okay, usahon na to. Like, right? L, lesbian. You know what a lesbian is. Like, women who like women. Gay, men who like men. Well, which is an umbrella term for liking the same sex, right? Gay. And then bisexual is someone who is attracted to both male and female.
Okay.
I've met people who are
I don't
truly
understand that at
bisexual.
all.
Yes, because you're so cis that way, right? You're so binary, like I'm a guy, so I only like women. But there are people who do, I mean, literally do both men and women, and they're attracted to both men and women. So that would be the B. And then the transgender would be someone like me, who was born a different sex, but now identify as another sex and dress up as it, live life as the opposite sex that I was born to. And then the LGBT and then queer are those who, so I love how they phrase it. I am not a man, I'm not a woman, I am neither, but I am either.
Okay.
So they're not a man, they're not a woman. Some of them present themselves as women, long hair, makeup, but they don't consider themselves women. Sometimes they go out without makeup and they're androgynous.
So like an in-between?
Yes, it's androgyny. So they can go to opposite spectrums. So that's a queer. The intersex is hermaphrodites. So they genetically, physiologically, they do have the same sex organs.
Oh,
Some
okay.
of them do. Because what I learned in genetics is, it's called homologous. So the sex organs of both males and females start out developing the same way.
Okay.
Your ovaries would be homologous to your scrotum. So basically the same. The urethra is there. It's basically the same, but at some point in development, the X gene and the Y gene dictate you become a girl, you become a boy. It becomes haywired for some people. So at some point in development, both become developed, with some parts a little less developed than the others. That's what you would now call a hermaphrodite. She has a vagina, but she also has
Okay, so
a little penis.
this isn't for every...
No,
Okay,
it's not a
okay.
choice.
So for most people, it just goes one way and then
Yes,
that's it.
yes.
But sometimes it goes...
It
as you
goes
mentioned,
both ways.
haywire. Okay.
Yes, it gets a little bit haywired, so it gets both. I mean, that person gets both. And some parts, of course, are a little less developed than the others. The male parts are less developed than the female parts. So that's the sexuality that they might identify with because they're born with it more pronounced. Like the vagina would be more pronounced than the penis. Some have a vestigial penis, like a non-functioning penis, but it's still there.
It's like a prop.
Yes. So you like, yes, yeah, in a way. So it's well, the scientific term would be vestigial.
Okay.
So
I don't know what that means, so
Yeah.
I just...
So, yeah, something like that. Yes, it doesn't function, but it's there, right? So yeah, it would be a source of confusion. What am I actually? I do have a vagina, but I also have a small penis. So yes, that's the I, which includes the LGBTQIA, and then A would be allies, includes cisgender people who are allied with us also. So yes, it's very inclusive. It's very inclusive now.
So A means
allies.
like it could be basically everybody
who will sympathize or who are allies to the cause. Yes, it's very inclusive now. Because you got to be very inclusive now, right? You got to be very inclusive.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't not inclusive before.
Not so much, because like I said, it was just buy a tomboy.
Because I think one of the conversations that we were talking about in the shoot was that
where we met our first trans man.
Or is that where you first?
I think that was my first trans man. At least
I'm not sure.
At least someone who I mean, you could actually touch, right? You could see.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was very surprised.
I think we were all surprised when he said that I was the founder of the trans men community. So we all acted calm and like.
No, honestly, I was like, what did he say?
I knew I heard it right. I was like, no, I'm not gonna act as if. But then after that, I was like, what the heck did he say? Did he say trans man? And yeah. Our first trans man, he popped our cherry. He popped our trans man cherry.
Yeah, that's why that whole conversation came out, no? Because it was one of the things that I hope Van doesn't mind. We may as well mention him, si Van Go. And then so he's the founder of
40 strong trans man community, Visayas and Mindanao. Yeah.
And then there was talk of like a movement.
Yes.
Diba? And then I remember that my attitude towards it before was okay, like,
you be you.
You be you.
Yes, you do you. Yeah.
And then if you can, because right now there's an issue with the legalization of everything,
which he brought up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then my attitude before was like, oh, at least you can be with the person that you're with.
That's
and then,
all that matters, right? You would think.
If the state doesn't, if they're not allowed to get married, etc. Who cares? Never mind. Screw them. You don't need them.
Yes. Yeah.
But it turns out that
apparently you do. Yes.
Yeah, some very real legal implications.
Yes, and the ramifications of not being identified as like common law or domestic partnership with someone that you build a life with.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm not an expert at all, but from the experiences of my friends, if you're married to each other, like you and Steph are married to each other, so you have property that you share, right? If something happens to either of you, then the other one who survives has a legal right to the property or to the kids or to the education or everything. If something should happen to you and you're in the hospital and you need to pull the plug, someone has to be there to say, I can pull the plug because I'm his wife or I'm her husband. That does not exist for same-sex relationships for now. I mean, if it comes to that, you suddenly revert to being just a friend or a stranger. And how sad is that? You built a life with them, your whole life with them. Basically just like straight couples, but at the end, when crunch time is there, you're nothing. You're reduced to nothing. So that's what we're asking for. The LGBTQIA community is asking for. There's even a poll now. He shared on, Van shared it, and I looked at it in Congress. They're testing the waters. It's still very much a Catholic country. People are saying that it might be the pretext so that legalization of marriage will be for same sex. We're just basically asking for the legal rights. That's it. For domestic partnership, at least. So that our rights as partners will be recognized by the law. That's it. So we can own businesses together, own property together, just like straight couples.
And then even I think a friend of mine, so also on Facebook, posted that link. And then he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna assume that
He's gay.
he wants to be referred to as a he.
Mm.
And then he said that he didn't care too much about it before, but then when a close friend of his close friend's partner passed away or something, and then couldn't get hold of the body or something, even that has nothing to do with property, but just being
there when they're dying or taking care of the funeral rights. No, because you don't have rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
you're reduced to you're on paper, you're nothing. On paper, you're nothing.
Molagi, and then
the way it is now, you're nothing.
So is there other? I mean, I saw the poll online, but when I voted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was surprised to see, at least at the time that I voted it was really 50-50.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay. You're right.
50 yes, 50 no, and then undecided was
1% undecided.
Yeah.
And then you're right, it's still a very Catholic country.
Yeah, because they even expressed in the choices, right?
It was weird.
No?
It was a very weird.
Yeah, the way it was phrased
was very weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should have been just yes or no, but they had to add.
They had implications for yes and no.
Yes, they put in implications, and I know. I also noticed that when they placed no, it wasn't just a simple no. It had because it's going to legalize marriage for it had that.
It had a tone.
Yes, it had a tone.
Well, to be fair, the yes also had
a tone. Yes, yeah.
It was weird that they had explanation for the yes or no, but I wonder, is there anything being done to push that forward?
There have been sporadic things done to push it forward, but then it's always pushed back because of the Catholic Church and the popularity of the politician behind it. So it waxes, it wanes. Now they're doing it again as an online poll, so they're still testing the waters because it's new blood in the Senate and Congress and all that after the midterm elections. So, yeah, they're always constantly testing the waters.
Well, which is, I don't know. I just because living here, there really is, I feel like there's a lot of
LGBTQIA++.
it's way too many letters for me.
Yeah. LGBTQIA+++.
Yeah, because, well, anyway, it seems to me like it's a big community, and it's a community that's also out there. That
has always been there.
Yeah, and always been no, but you could have argued in the 90s, people may have been hiding a little bit more, but now it's really out there,
and starting younger too. I'm a little conflicted also about that.
What do you mean?
Since the society is so permissive, there are transgender kids at the age of like 5, 6, 7 years old. They choose to be transgender at that age, and their parents support them, so they have hormone treatments.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have yet to see, because it's starting out at this generation, so we don't have someone who at that age started out, not that I know of at least, someone who started out very early and turned out to be, I don't know how that turns out yet. We don't know how that turns out yet because it's just starting.
So you have a problem
at
with
this generation.
the hormone
I
part
don't
of it?
know
Or?
if that would be good or bad, because if you're a little too permissive, people don't strive to earn the respect like what I did. I went through all the shebang, na bayot ka and all this, so I had to earn respect.
Mm-hmm.
I had to earn it. And in this generation, it's all handed out to them. Oh, really? 4 years old? You want to be a girl? You're a girl inside? Okay, I'll support you. Because it's a very supportive environment. The world's supportive about that. And you might get bashed on social media for not supporting your child coming out to you like that. But I don't know yet if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Well,
honestly.
Is it is 4 years old too early for them to know?
4, 5, 6.
Or like, do people really know
I
at
think
that
like
age?
Exactly. Like, when do you actually like have a fully formed idea of your sexuality?
Yeah, because
right?
also like, I mean, at least for me, like I knew at 18 years old, I had no idea who I was. Like, but not in terms of sexuality.
Yes,
it was more of like, you know, who am I? What do I stand for? What kind of people do I like hanging out with?
Which is normal for 18.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I would think that either sexuality is, I don't know, in one way it's really complicated, and the other way it's really simple.
Simple, yes, yeah.
So
it's both, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Agree.
At 4, 5, 6,
is that your final answer?
Right.
Is that the final answer? Because people go through like the tomboy stage, and they turn out to be, oh wait, people are praying it's like a phase. I know this might be a controversial idea, but this is the old school me talking. Should you wait for like a grace period for people to form sexually? What is the right grace period? I'm pretty sure there are studies about that, but it still bothers me that we don't know how these are going to turn out yet and what ramifications they will have in the future, because it's just, like I said, it's just starting out in this generation. That they're starting sex reassignment very early. There are even reality shows about it on TV.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
This is in the US, right?
It's in the US.
Okay.
Yes, in the US. Not here. No, not here.
I'd be surprised if that was here.
No. Not yet.
No, but
there are kids who cross-dress all the time, identify as women as early as 5, 6 years old. And I know that at that age, I already knew that I did not like girls. That I would never have sex with a girl, or I would never be attracted to a girl. I was always attracted to men, even at probably like 5, 6 years old. I already knew that, but what? But I was never given, I was not told, then you become a girl at this age. I don't know how that would have turned out for me as well if there was total support.
Do you think your parents knew that?
They knew, yes.
Really,
parents
like at
always
5,
know.
6?
Parents would always know. They would deny it because at that age or at that generation, it was looked upon as like where did you go wrong, right? Where did we go wrong?
It was the fault of the parents.
Yes, the fault what did we do wrong in raising our son now that he wants to be a girl, or he acts feminine? Ano na bayot man siya?
I think there were even books written like
Yes.
how to raise your kid to be a man.
Really?
I remember
like old school,
there were,
like the cowboy.
Jokes. Yeah, there were jokes about this.
Yeah.
Talk about sports.
Yeah, true. Like these blue books and the red book for the ladies, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I saw those. Yes. Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, looking back now, it's really strange.
It's different. It's a totally different world. At some point, I don't know if I would have turned out the way I turned out now, realizing these things, if I was allowed to be a girl when I was much younger. Or what ramifications that would have had growing up because I was allowed to do that, if I was allowed to do that when I was younger. You get my point? Like,
yeah, I'm more curious about like you mentioned like hormone stuff. Like I don't know, I'm just very wary about putting things in my
to
body,
your body,
in
yes.
general.
Especially if it changes your physiology to a point that physically you change as well. Like in that sense, like Van really looks male with a stubble and all that, but that's a lot of work that he did on his body, right? So it's the same way with trans women, taking hormones to make you feminine. So the real concern there is the medical concern as well, which I love that he brought up, that they're looking for clinics that will take care, or at least doctors that will take care of trans men and trans women post-op or during the process of transitioning.
Wait, is that like a long...
It's a lifetime process.
Oh, it's a lifetime
It's
process.
lifetime because if you were born male, there's no escaping the fact that your hormones will be male. So in order to make your body conform to what you feel inside, let's say I identify now as a woman, so I want to look more feminine, I take in pills or hormones to reverse. Like, I don't grow a beard anymore because I have more female hormones in me. The fat deposits go to where the fat deposits in women go to. Even that. So they go to the breasts. So we grow breasts because the fat deposits concentrate themselves there. Because you're basically tricking your body to believe, babae ka.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking female hormones to trick your body into believing that you're female. You're female. So it just follows. Because these are triggers. These are just switches. The hormones switch on and off.
So if you stop the
then
treatment,
you turn it off, you revert back to, like Van said, there are reversible and there are irreversible changes, but most of them are reversible. So you go back to your default.
Okay, so it really is a lifetime. It's like a maintenance thing.
Yes, it's a maintenance thing, which is why I choose not to take it that far, because at my age, I don't see the point anymore. Maybe if I was younger, if I was 20 years old and I was on hormones and it really looked feminine and female, then I might consider a sex change, like the whole snippety doodah. I might.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole snippety doodah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, the snippety doodah. The sex reassignment surgery. The more scientific approach to it with a sex reassignment surgery. I at this point, no, it's too much hassle on my part. Plus the fact that I have to undergo psychological assessment if I'm truly transsexual. Because what I know is, again, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on this, but what I know is it has to really come to a point where you have a body dysmorphia where you cannot stand. If you're born male, identify as female, and you cannot stand the sight of your penis, that you want to cut it off, that's already body dysmorphia. Then you have to have that sexual reassignment surgery because you try to hurt yourself because you can't stand the sight of it. And I don't have that. I'm fine with my penis as long as I can hide it under clothes that, I use cosmetic stuff, not surgery yet, but the right girdle or the right underwear hides it, or plaster. Okay. TMI. Arranging it in such a way that it's concealed. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Or augmenting my breasts. I'm fine with that. Not the whole shebang, because I'm thinking a little too old.
I guess that's why there's also so many different classifications, no?
Yes, transsexuals, there's transgender, now there's also just plain cross-dressers who dress up like women or dress up like men if you were born women. Yeah.
Are there like you mentioned the term bayot, no?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like in my I have treated it now as almost like a slur.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it?
It depends on how you use it. It does have that connotation, but then I have a classmate, Johan Yang. I don't know if you know Johan.
Yeah.
John's such an old friend, and that is his term for endearment for me. In fact, one time we were at the chat group, our Sacred Heart Batch chat group, and he referred to me as Jude. Like, Jude. I was like, that felt weird. And then next line, he also felt this like, sorry bayot. Because that's what he calls me. So, sorry bayot, that felt weird too. I'm calling you Jude. So, it is in the way you wield it or your intent. Because there are people who use it truly as a slur, then it becomes a slur.
I think you also mentioned one of the things that interested me when we were talking in the show was that some people have earned it.
You have to earn the right to call me that. Or, Hoy bayot.
Yeah, like there's no way. Yeah.
Or, for example, okay, I have a friend, Alem Garcia, identifies as queer. Alem is queer, therefore, they don't want to be referred to as he or she, male or female. So the pronouns that Alem prefers would be they or them. But I always catch myself saying, bayot, die. Calling them that, calling Alem that, which should be an affront to his nature, but then because I don't mean it to insult the fact that Alem identifies as queer, and you can see me jumping around not calling him or her, right? Because they don't like it, but I still struggle with it because it's not what we're used to, right? So you have to earn it. You have to earn that right to call me whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, it was a different time, but like when I was younger, like in high school, that was like
an insult. Yes, it really was a slur.
Yeah, you would call like your friends that.
Yes, if they were weak or they were,
And then I noticed like
inferior.
I just said it, ganina, and then it did not roll out of my tongue at all. Like I had a hard time saying
it
word
in front of me.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, and then yeah, it's a different time.
It's a different time, but then what I'm happy with is that there are conversations like this that are happening. People should talk about it. Because if we did not have that conversation during the shoot, we would just keep it inside. We're like, oh, okay, trans man, okay. And you wouldn't know how people would feel about it or how they would prefer to be called based on how they prefer to be called. Because it's the only, like you were asking me, so when does someone become considered a trans man or trans woman? It's up to them if they identify as that. Now, I'm a trans woman. So the safest would be call them by their first name or a title. If there's a title, then that would be safest. But then otherwise, in a more personal setting, ask them how they would prefer to be called. Like in a bank, my friend works at a bank. He's very sensitive about it. So the first time they get a client who is obviously trans, they would ask that person, "Hi, how would you like to be? Do you have a preferred nickname?" So now, like even in online forums, there's a preferred nickname. That's it. How would you like to be called?
Really? Is that what it is?
Yes,
I noticed,
the preferred nickname, right?
I noticed that.
Yes.
And I remember seeing something like that, and I would find it strange.
Yes. Preferred nickname is
that like,
that.
It's like code. It's
yes,
like,
it's the code. Like, I'm being sensitive about this. What would you prefer to be called? Preferred nickname. For example, if I was born Torquato, and my God, I don't look like a Torquato, so call me Telly, right? So that would be my preferred nickname because I'm comfortable with that. So that now enters into daily life. You weren't even thinking about the preferred nickname, but that's what it's there for.
That's why I wanted to have this conversation because it's very confusing.
It's confusing for me too, by the way.
I know. So imagine if it's confusing for you. It's a lot more confusing for somebody like me.
Yeah.
And then especially if you're trying to... It gets to the stage where like you don't want to offend anybody.
Yes, yeah. But in trying to do that, it does not do good for their community or yours or the community in general, right? Because you try to keep yourself from insulting them so you don't.
There's no understanding na noon.
And then you don't relate to them at all. You choose not to relate to them at all. So you don't know how to relate to them. Remember, hasol man kayo. Kung sa siya, kanang, how do I call him or how do I call her? Or kanang, dapat kuno, inani na bagid siya. So, okay, too much trouble. So let's move on to the next person, right?
Oh, yeah.
So people should be more open to these conversations. I mean, I used to flare up when a taxi driver would call me sir. And then I realized that there are people who are in makeup who look like me who prefer to be called sir as well. So it confuses them. So now I'm not as, I don't snap anymore. I just gently say, nakoy tutoy, so mom ko. So, like, humor. I let it slide with humor. I used to be very vitriolic about it, but I'm not anymore.
I guess once, even if you're confused.
Yes, exactly. So it should be confusing to them as well. And I never saw that perspective because I lived in my whole perspective. I was just coming from that perspective, the one that I know. And then there are other people's perspectives, and so it changes.
Yeah, well, we've been talking for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to touch on was the before we end anyway.
And I'm never gonna listen to this, by the way.
You won't?
No,
that's too bad.
no, because I don't want to listen to myself or watch myself.
Yeah.
I don't. It makes you, oh no, I should have
You
said
never
this.
have?
I never have.
Really?
I was on television for 7 years. I've only seen 2 episodes.
Mo ba?
Yes, I do not like to watch myself. I don't.
Well, I kind of have to listen to this to edit it, so I end up listening to myself.
No, but I mean, this was fun, but I don't think I could listen to myself.
Oh, yeah?
No,
well, you know,
I would cringe.
For me, the reason to have this, I'm actually really glad that we had that anthill shoot first.
Yeah.
Because before that, we were going to schedule this much earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't, like, sexuality is such a personal thing.
Yes, yeah.
And then I didn't.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So, like, sometimes it's good. Sometimes people are willing to talk about it. And sometimes people are not.
Yes.
And then me as...
You know what? In fact, I realized I overstepped my boundaries with Van during the shoot when I joked about, do you have a PP already? Because trans men in general, their culture, they're uncomfortable talking about the surgeries. So I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
As opposed to...
Trans women, yes, as opposed to trans women, they're like, oh, I had my breasts augmented here and there. And
it's like I share my contacts pa.
Yes, yeah. You know who makes a good pussy? Well, I have the number, honey. So, with trans men, no. And he kind of hinted with the fact that he said a lot of them do not want to come out because they really do pass as real men. They really pass as real men, which is basically the idea, I would guess, right? I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also touch on that the Netflix show, the street food, the Cebu episode.
Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you. So, I think you posted about it, and I don't really have Netflix.
Well, have you seen it?
No, I saw it now.
Oh,
because,
no, okay.
Because there's so much stuff.
Yes. There was so much controversy.
So, like,
yes.
In a way, like. I think like with the whole Eric Mati thing.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sure it got a lot of people to watch. Yeah. Which was a good side effect, obviously.
Yes.
But like my first reaction to his critique was like, it's a big deal. So he doesn't like it. He thinks it's quote unquote poverty porn.
Yes, yeah.
And then I watched it and then I could see why people reacted to it because it was a real story. It wasn't just like Murag, here's this poor person, and then, it was really a story.
It wasn't even focused on the food itself. I mean, food was just incidental, that they made this kind of food, but the story was really about the people.
Mo gani, so I get it. I get the vitriol.
Yes, yeah.
No? But how did you get
involved in
the show?
I wasn't the only one that they contacted, but I was one of the people that they reached out to when they were the way I remember is Susie Beck, who's the producer and director of the show, who came over, emailed me and asked if she could speak to me about the documentary that they were doing about street food. And when she said that she was from the team that they did Chef Sable, I literally screamed on the phone when she called me. I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? I'm a huge fan of Chef Sable. Have you seen that series?
No.
Oh my God. They're they're like the gold standard when it comes to food shows. Chef's Table is the same thing, but as street food, they lush cinematography, great writing, great stories. But this has something to do with the Michelin-starred restaurants. So this would have to be like a Michelin-starred restaurant here and there. So really top restaurants they featured. And it's already a given when your subject is Michelin-starred that it would be beautiful food, beautiful stories. Automatic. And I wanted that treatment for street food. Imagine my excitement when they said, we're the team from Chef's Table and we're going to do a documentary on street food. I was like, yes. And they did not disappoint. So they emailed me because of an article that I wrote in Smile magazine. I wrote about the bacasi or the eel in Cordova in relation to a chef who's now based in the Philippines. His name is Chele Gonzalez. So Chele Gonzalez opened a restaurant in Crimson called Enye by Chele Gonzalez. He was here for a visit, and I said, why don't I let you try the local flavors? So the closest to Crimson in Mactan was the Bacasi in Cordova. So I brought him there. He had an amazing experience. I wrote about it for Smile. He cooked it 5 ways. He stripped off the skin. He made it into chicharron, which is familiar to the Spanish palate. He made it into adobo. He did so many things with the eel because they had the same... they had eels in Spain, but these were baby eels. They call it angulas. So it's basically a delicacy for them. So he's familiar with the material. I wrote about that. It got noticed by Susie and the rest of the guys from...
Yeah, when did they send the email?
This was August of last year. I wrote the article in March. It came out March 2018. I think the team was Googling street food in the Philippines or street food in the Philippines. And what came out, of course, as you would expect, was the balot and the kwek-kwek and the usual. The usual. They did not want to do the usual. That was their first instruction. We don't want to do the usual. So they found my article probably like way down the line. And they said, oh, eels. Really? They clicked on it. They contacted Jacob Mentz. Jacob Mentz is this international photographer who now lives in Cebu. And I work with him for a lot of my Smile articles. We're like a dynamic duo when it comes to Smile here in Cebu. That's what our editor called us. So they contacted him because I assume they already knew him from the community, from the photography and all that. So they contacted him and he said, why don't you call the writer? Because Jude would be the best person to talk about it. So they did. They called me. He gave them my number. So I spoke to them. I was really excited. Their first question, because they did not tell me what the treatment for the show was, that it was going to be based on a personality. But their first question was, can you give us a list of what you would consider street food in Cebu or in the Philippines? But they were very clear about it being Cebu because they told me at the onset that we are only going to shoot our Philippine episode in Cebu, which really got me excited. It really got me excited. So I gave them a list. Of course, Larang was there. Tuslubua was there. And then I even included Larshan. Because Larshan is synonymous to Cebuano street food. Like, that's the most basic. And people are asking, why wasn't Larshan there? They said, we are not going to do barbecue at all because we did it in another episode in Indonesia. So it's basically about storytelling. It's not about embodying everything that street food is, but it also has something to do with which stories are more interesting. I even recommended another person who did lechon belly, the latest incarnation of the inasal na baboy, right? It's smaller, it's more compact, it's more flavorful. They did meet with her. I did not like the fact that Eric Mati said that it was bad research because if anything, oh my God, those people from Netflix did thorough research. They were very respectful in their research. They asked questions. They didn't stop at asking me. They asked several people. So there are several people who are credited for talent coordination for them. Listed in the episode, but it was just me who ended up on screen and together with Mike.
So there's a lot put in the cutting floor, basically.
Yes. A lot of it was put in the cutting floor because it's a 30-minute show.
Yeah.
And they really admitted, Susie admitted after it came out, Jude, we had enough material for 3 seasons of it. So it's amazing material they got. So Larson was out of the question at the onset. They didn't want to do barbecue because they did it in other countries. So they wanted different stories. They really wanted stories that had never seen light. Because I can relate to that as a magazine writer. I cannot write, when people ask me, can you write about Cebu? I cannot write about Sinulog every single article, right?
Yeah.
Sinulog is quintessentially Cebu, but you can't stick to that story and different version of it over and over again. It has to be something new. So they were doing their job when they said, show us something new. And the something new was that.
Yeah, and then I guess what happens is the research just led them to the best story.
Yes, to the best stories. Because there were different options that were given to them. They picked out which ones, because they're storytellers. They picked out which ones would be the most interesting ones. Yeah. So Ruby. A lot of people ask me about Ruby. Why the Chinese lumpia? Chinese lumpia, she was just at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, but she was just on the way.
On the way to Entoys.
Yeah.
Literally on the way to Entoys. They stopped and had lunch at her little carinderia. She's very engaging in person. My God, her personality.
Dynamic.
Yes,
really.
and luminous on screen, right? With her red lipstick.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't part of discovering her, but I fell in love with her when we launched it in Manila and they flew us all there for the launching of the series. We had it at Toyo Restaurant, which is the #1 restaurant in the Philippines. It's the only Philippine restaurant that made it to the 50 best restaurants list in Asia. It's a prestigious list, and it's in there. It's the only Filipino restaurant to
That's
make
cool.
it.
They made their own versions of the dishes.
Of the
diba?
dishes, yes, based
cool.
on their stories. Because the four Netflix stars were flown into Manila, and they spoke to Jordi Navarra, who's the chef of Toyo, about their experience and about the food that they're doing, and they made their own versions of it. It's amazing. I was there at that lunch and I was like, I've been trying to get into this restaurant for such a long time. It's impossible to get into this restaurant. It's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like #1 restaurant,
Yeah.
and the Philippines are always booked. And now I'm actually here launching a show that started with the question, what are stories that haven't been told? I basically just gave them that. We gave them that. And I'm very proud to be part of it. Very proud.
It was a
to be part of
really
it.
good episode.
Yes, yeah.
So you went to Entoys recently, diba?
I went to Entoys recently.
Like after the show?
Yes, after the shoot. I went there 2 weeks after because there was a Japanese chef, 2 Michelin-starred Japanese chef, who asked Jordi, can you ask Jude to please tour me around Cebu? Because he watched the episode where he was in Osaka. He has a restaurant there called La Cime. He is #14 on the 50 best restaurants list this year. Amazing. I mean,
Wow.
if it's harder to get into Jordi, who's like number 40 something on the list, he's number 14. This guy's number 14. And he flew in with his family, vacation in Manila, and then flew to Cebu because of that episode. And he went around. I took him to Entoys. When we got there, Beda, the daughter-in-law of Entoy, who is taking over the business, because everyone else has, they've graduated, they've had great lives already. So just to keep the carinderia alive, Beda was taking over. And I was so glad that she put in little changes to it, like all the girls who were serving were wearing the same t-shirt.
Like uniform, color.
They now have a little uniform. So a plain blue t-shirt, but at least they all look cleaner now. It's not like you're coming in with your ratty shirt, because now you have a uniform. And she understands what Netflix has done to them and the business. Noy Entoy probably has no idea, but then he smiles gamely when people ask for his photograph, and he knows that. But I've been writing about them for such a long time for magazines that they get trickles of this, but the Netflix exposure was just,
I'm sure. So they did like
yes.
they had an explosion good in terms
that was like
of
off the roof. Yes.
Like, I want to go there. I've never had it.
Yes.
And I want to try it.
And the way she serves it is so quaint. It's lovely. You ask for because not just the bakasi, they also have the spider conch, the saang. So saang is like a shellfish. It's popular as well. It was also featured in I think it was also featured, the spider conch. So people ask for that. So now she arranges it. She arranges
that's
it
the one with the
really,
shells?
yes,
Yeah,
with the shells.
yeah.
Arranges it really nice. And in the middle is a dipping sauce. They didn't used to. I mean, it's a carinderia. You don't have plating at all. But her exposure to this has made it even better. So that brings me to another line that also is like something that is like a mantra in my life. Always leave them better than you found them. Always leave things or people better than you found them. And that struck me when I was eating at, I'm not taking the credit for everything, but she acknowledges it. Thank you for telling our stories. And as a storyteller, that really is like validation for me. And I know that I left them better off than I first met them, because now she has all this. I'm not just saying the boom in tourism, but she arranges it in a way that makes it so Instagrammable, and she understands. She understands. And I like that I left them better than when I found them.
So I think that's a good place to
to end.
Unless you want to add anything?
No,
anything you want to add?
I'm good.
Is there what's coming up for you? Anything up in the works, work-wise?
In line with tourism, which I've always been passionate about Cebu, I just showed you the Cebu City tourist map, right?
Yeah.
So can we talk about that?
Sure.
So I'm doing the Cebu City tourist map. It's the first official tourist map of Cebu. This is with the OT7, Cebu City Tourism Office. It was actually Heart Rizari's idea when she came up with this, and she asked for my help. Can we do something like this? Which we did for the previous administration. They loved it. Happy Garahe and I worked on that version as well. And they liked it, that they wanted to do a similar one for this administration. So we transcended administrations to do that. So what it is, it's like a printed map that's given for free to the tourists. They get it for free at the airport because it's official. And of course, it's supported by ads. So we sell ads for any business that might benefit from tourism or is tourism related. That's basically
so
that.
How can they?
They can send us an email at cebucitytouristmap@gmail.com. So it's cebucitytouristmap@gmail.com. They can check out the map online at cebucitytouristmap.com. We have a website there that tells you how many times they've been downloaded. We've been downloaded probably like 6,500 times since we launched, which is very recently. So I'm very happy about that. If they want to advertise, they can do that. And if they want to get a free copy of the map, they can get it at the airport. And we're also distributing it at tourist spots for free. They can get it for free.
Yeah, it's like a free map.
It's
very
a free
helpful.
map. Yes, yeah. And it will evolve from that because we're going to make it a little bit more interactive.
Is this still this is still the thing that I saw? Is still the first iteration.
It's the first one, yes, and we're improving it. We're also bringing it online, so we have a Facebook page that has great engagement. So now we're also doing videos, not just of the properties that we feature, which we need to do because it's a business. Please don't forget, this is not kawanggawa. It is a business for it to survive. But we're also putting in, because I love stories that have never been told before. So I'm going to do that for the map. For example, let me ask you this question. Do you know what's behind the altar in Santo Niño? The Basilica. Have you ever wondered what's behind that?
Behind it?
Yes.
in the structure?
Yes, in the structure.
No idea.
It's a 300-year-old library.
Huh, really?
Yes. I'd like to bring you there. You'll be amazed. You know what? Because for us is to bring someone and get their reactions. I'm going to bring you there.
Game.
I'm going to bring you there. It's a 300-year-old library that's always been open to the public, but not a lot of people know it.
Oh,
But
really?
it's right behind the altar. And there's a huge eagle, which is the Augustinian symbol, carved on the wall. Huge. Will give you goosebumps. And the books there are still written in vellum. Sheepskin.
Vellum? Oh,
Sheepskin.
okay.
300-year-old books.
I remember the last time you talked to me about historical stuff. That's where I learned about the Jesuit house.
Yes, the Jesuit house. These stories.
Yeah.
I mean, found inside a working warehouse. The oldest house in the country. So these are stories I like telling. And the Cebu City Tourist Map is just an avenue for me to do those. Have you been to... so it's May. Okay, let me plug, because this might come out also in May. May is Heritage Month. I think it's Museum Month?
Yeah, wait, just to be clear, this might come out like a month
Like
or
after.
two
Well,
after.
well,
But anyway.
yeah, it's just an invitation. Every last Friday of May is Gabi sa Kabilin. It's where it's patterned after the German Night of the Museum, where museums are open from 6 p.m. to midnight. They have their own shows. It's amazing. It's something that you should come to Cebu for every last Friday of May for just one night.
Okay.
It's raining.
I know, it's gonna get it in the
It's a
recording.
downpour.
But anyway, to end, where can people find you online?
I have Instagram. It's at JUDEBACALSO, Jude Bacalso, which is not familiar to those outside of Cebu because they always spell it differently. There's Bacalso is very Cebuano, so I always used to assume that people would know how it's spelled. No, so it's JUDEBACALSO.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll also put it in
Instagram.
the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
thanks.
don't have a website yet, but I'm working on it.
Oh, really?
Or a blog. No, I don't have one.
It's really easy to do.
I know. I know.
The hard part
Just
is
too
updating
lazy.
it, really.
Yeah, true.
But you're a writer, so...
True. I
you'll
should have
figure that
that.
out.
Yeah.
Jude, thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
the interview.
Thank you.
Okay. Man, talking to Jude was fun. I know I learned a lot. I hope you did too. This podcast has allowed me to talk to all sorts of people, to get a glimpse of all sorts of communities. And, obviously this is a community that I have no idea about. And I learned a lot. It was fun. It opened my eyes as to what the current struggles are for their community here in the Philippines. So I'm hoping that as time passes, the sentiments in a way change. Just that whole poll in Congress, the whole gay marriage here in the Philippines. We should start rethinking, what those laws are and what they mean to that LGBT community. So I hope this is like one tiny step into that direction. I hope this conversation was a tiny step into that direction. Thank you, Graphic 9 and Room 11 for sponsoring the podcast. The music from this podcast is Piano March by Audionautics. If you, yes you, the one currently listening right now, if you enjoyed this episode and if you like what we do, you can directly support the podcast if you head over to patreon.com/032. That's 032 in letters. It helps us continue doing this podcast by, you're able to directly, monetarily help us. And in return, we'll give you some exclusive content and even some exclusive merch. And, but more importantly, it allows us to continue doing this podcast. And another way to support is to buy 032 merchandise. You can head over to assembly.032.com, or you can just simply share this episode on social media. All those things help a lot. Oh, one last thing. Let me know if you want to hear from if there's somebody in the creative community that you want to hear from, that you are interested in listening to a conversation with. Let me know. Head over to social media, tag us, tag them, whatever. Send us a message. You'll figure out a way to do it, I'm sure, if you really want to do it. Okay. See you next Tuesday. Bye.